destroyed. Let's bring in Professor Shahram Akbarzadeh. He's a research professor in Middle East and Central Asian politics at Deakin University. Joins us live from Melbourne. Professor Shahram, thank you for your time. So all the indicators are that Israel is about to launch a huge ground offensive into Gaza. But many of the experts we've been talking to here at Al Jazeera say there's no military solution to this conflict. So what is the end game? I mean, an Israeli occupation of Gaza? Is that what Israel really wants?
Israel does not want to have a military invasion of Gaza. In fact, Israel has been trying to extract itself from Gaza when it withdrew from Gaza unilaterally and constructed borders and it put in place a blockade of Gaza. Controlling Gaza is too costly for Israel. And sending ground troops into Gaza means house-to-house fighting, combat. That's going to be extremely costly for everyone, for Israeli forces and for the civilians in Gaza. So this is not what Israel wants. But if they're pursuing the objective of destroying Hamas, I think there is no other way but to go in with soldiers, with boots on the ground.
And lots of emotive rhetoric coming from Israeli leaders, and we've just seen recently the formation of this war cabinet demanding the total destruction of Hamas. But, Professor, we've heard this rhetoric before, and Hamas hasn't been destroyed.
No, it's difficult to imagine that they would even entertain the idea of destroying Hamas, because Hamas is a response by Palestinians, response of a desperate people who have been under occupation for decades. Hamas represents those kind of aspirations and desperations for statehood, for sovereignty, for recognition. Hamas as an organization might be destroyed, but there will be another organization emerging in its place. So the concept of destroying Hamas and then thinking that the problem is resolved is fanciful. The only way to resolve the problem is to find a political solution to the challenge.
Professor, as we're talking to you, we're seeing live pictures from Gaza as Israel steps up its attack on the enclave, thick black smoke pouring out of the city. This attack by Hamas shocked Israel and the world. What do you think were the political and military calculations that Hamas made to carry out this attack now? And was this a terrible and bloody reminder that perhaps Hamas cannot be ignored politically?
I think it was an act of desperation. I think it was also an act of trying to seek recognition for Palestine and Palestinians. We have to look at it in context. The world has moved on practically from the Palestinian issue. The international media spotlight is on Ukraine. The United States has been trying to find ways of normalizing ties between Israel and Arab states. Even Saudi Arabia, a key Arab state, was sending messages and signaling that they would be moving toward normalizing ties with Israel. So this is an act of desperation, really. Hamas has brought the idea of Palestine and Palestinian plight, if you like, on the international agenda. It's really unfortunate, of course, that it's done that through such acts of violence and barbarism and so many deaths.
Professor Shahram, let me get a final point from you. I mean, where does all of this then leave Hamas's agenda of Palestinian national liberation? What happens now when the dust has settled?
I think when the dust has settled, Hamas has demonstrated that Palestinian Authority is powerless, is a contractor for Israeli occupation. So Palestinian Authority has lost its legitimacy, that Hamas is the only party and only entity that can represent the Palestinian people. And again, it has forced, in a way, the Palestinian issue back on the international agenda.
All right. Professor Shahram Akbarzadeh there live for us in Melbourne. Thank you very much indeed, sir, for your time. All right, well, we've been looking at these live pictures coming from Gaza, huge plumes of smoke, much more than we've seen in the past few hours, and certainly from last night, huge plumes of black, acrid smoke floating over Gaza as Israel steps up its airstrikes. Let's bring in... we were going to talk to our correspondent Yumna El Sayed in Gaza. We will speak to her when we can get her. Let's just move on, shall we? Because the Israeli army has called for calm after a false alarm sent people in northern Israel scrambling for shelter. Warning sirens rang out and flares were fired at the border with Lebanon. People were told to seek shelter from a possible aerial infiltration from Lebanon. The army now says the panic was caused by human error.